I think too many people think that they can do it alone. And that's what I said. The first thing I did when I was fundraising was ask for help from someone who knew how to fundraise. And awesome. I kind of got bounced around and introduced to a bunch of people. And all that advice is what landed me a really great fundraising process. So it's being open to building relationships, asking for advice, and just being really genuine about what you're doing and why.
Hello, hello, hello. I am super excited because this is the final episode of season 2 of the AfternoonT podcast. And we have an amazing guest, a fantastic guest, a guest that you all should know if you don't already. That is Kim Kaplan of Snack. Kim, before we start our little powwow here, let me just set this up, please. So Kim Kaplan is the CEO of Snack, a video dating app that combines the matching algorithms of dating apps with the ability to share your life in real time. Snack aims to disrupt the dating industry, being a video-first app that caters to Gen Z, or Z as we say. With over 10 years of experience in the dating app industry, Kim decided to venture into the space with her own app. Kim's expertise lies in product, marketing, and revenue optimization, having advised a number of startups in this area. Kim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Oh, this is good. Honestly, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun because I've been listening to you. You're on a lot of you're everywhere. You're everywhere, and
trying to be.
but it's fantastic. It's as a Canadian, I'm very proud of the work you're doing because I think it's just another it's an industry that we've done really well in. You've had your DNA and part of that throughout the whole journey, and I think Snack, what you're doing is going to dominate even more for the next few years. So then the next chapters after that, I'm sure you're going to be part of the journey. So tell you what, why don't we just do this? Can you tell me the story behind Snack?
Oh, wow. Okay. So a bit of my backstory, for those that don't know, is I was part of Plenty of Fish for 10 years. I was one of the early employees, joined very, very early on and got to see the growth of that, went through the Match.com acquisition. I stuck around for 3 years post-acquisition and got a great opportunity to work across different organizations inside the Match Group like Tinder and OkCupid and really learn from them. And then I thought I was done with dating. I left and said, okay, that's it. I am so bearish of the space because of how hard it is. And dating is a very hard industry. I was enjoying my life, advising startups, doing some angel investing. And then one day I came across this woman on TikTok, and she was pointing in these 4 different directions saying, what's your name? What's your age? What's your sign? Where are you from? And I realized that she was trying to use TikTok to date. Nice. And I kind of started going down that rabbit hole of like, well, how prevalent is dating on TikTok? And at that point in time, there's over 13 billion views of the hashtag single. Wow. And I ended up in dating TikTok land, and all the content I kept seeing was dating related. And that's ultimately where the idea for Snack was born.
Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I mean, the listener, I'll say listener to the show, know that I love to say the tiki talk, and recognize, it's such, it's a great medium, and it's the AI behind it. So when you say, we're leaning on TikTok as the medium or the I guess the way that the people are consuming the content. Are you focusing on, because I know the power of that is not just the content, but it's also on the AI algorithm that's matching. Are you looking at it from both sides, or are you just looking at it from kind of the packaging, the way that TikTok works?
I think both of it. The video component, to me, the really interesting piece is in dating, there's been lots of companies that have tried to interject video into dating, but nobody really knew how to create great videos of themselves. And that fundamentally shifted when TikTok came out and said, here's how you create 30 and 40-second and 60-second videos of who you are in a fun and entertaining way. And that's why now is that right time for video dating. So we're taking the components of the ease of video creation and how do you create dating content very easily that is video orientated, because that definitely is a challenge. And then the way that you can express yourself in a video is so much more robust than what you can in a static image. So there's a lot more information you can pull from it, whether or not someone likes hiking or outdoors, or they have pets, or they're engaging in content that contains those types of things. We're then able to show you more people that are doing those similar things. So I think you can express yourself more authentically, as well as show up who you are in a more natural way through video. I recently was using the example of this like static image of someone holding a guitar. And say you're on Tinder and you rate them a 5 out of 10. but all of a sudden you get to see them play the guitar or sing this
Mm,
amazing song. And you can't tell me that that person isn't going to be higher than a 5 out of 10 for you. And that
wonderful.
ultimately is, you get to show up who you are. And I think that's really special.
I love that. I love that. I mean, the dynamic way to approach your own characteristics, your own style, and your own flair. Well, I'm going to be totally like, I'm just going to put it on the table and say I'm guilty of this. Okay, I've followed what you've done with Snack, but I have one rule in my life, and this is to the wonderful Mrs. Hobbs. It keeps us very happy. Is I don't download dating apps. It's just because over the years of making software, I've had lots of requests for that, and I always tell them, great, Tinder, I'm sure it works great. I'll look at it on someone else's phone. I don't want it on my phone, so I haven't seen Snack personally, okay, like
That's fine.
on my own account for good reasons. But say I was on it, would I be doing just like one video, or is it like a constant thread of videos, like a typical social media play where I'd be constantly showing the new stuff I'm doing and use that as the medium for my dating life?
It's a constant thread of videos. I think that's the
Okay.
big shift we made as well, is if you
Mhm.
think about dating profiles and how they exist today, you might not know this, but the way that they kind of exist is you upload your 5 images of yourself, you write your paragraph, and you never touch it again. It's kind of the static version of who you are, where that's not social anymore. Social is you're constantly updating your profile or your friends with what you're up to, who you're with, what's going on in your life. And why wouldn't you do that for dating as well?
Mm.
And that provides an opportunity for someone to also start a conversation with you, because they see that new content that's coming up and they're like, oh, that's such a cute dog. What type of dog is it?
Mm.
Versus those 5 images where they might not have had something to say about that. So it is more that natural social evolution
Mhm,
versus the
mhm.
way dating's existed for the last number of decades.
I love that. And also I assume it keeps a lot of the static content out, or I should call it stagnant content, where I show a picture of me when I was 21 with a little bit more hair and maybe a thicker mustache.
Well, that's the
It
other
keeps that
that's the
away, I
other
assume.
thing with videos, is videos
Mhm.
like this didn't exist 5 years
Mm.
ago even.
Nope. Nope.
So the content you're seeing is relevant, it's
Mhm.
real, and it's recent.
Yeah. Oh no, I get it. And I watch my kids. They're 13 and 14. I had to think about that. That's sad. But 13, 14, and I watch them on the Snapchat, and just how fast and how much they engage with video. And it's not even a thought anymore. In fact, they have what do they call it? The streaks, where they have to do it daily. And if I get upset with them, they get upset at me, because I take away their phone, they get upset with me because it's like, I can't do my streaks, it's almost addictive. But the fact that they consume this video so quickly, I can see how it would be so addictive to be part of it on the dating scene. When you're doing it for more than just a passive, I'm just consuming, to a, hey, I've got a mission, I gotta find love. This is a great avenue for that.
That, and like, your kids are a great example, and they're too young for Snack, but they are a great example of a
Yeah.
generation that is growing up with just as many videos on their phone as what the older generations have images. So
Mhm,
when you
mhm.
think about how that kind of barrier to entry for us to say, oh, like, to create a video is really challenging, it's not for that demographic. That demographic has
Completely.
hundreds of them on their phone, and they just very easily upload them and create their profile with them.
And they don't care about the editing. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done in a way that has their sort of joie de vivre in it.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah, no,
love that. I love that authenticity about this
Mhm,
generation. Like, I joke that Instagram's kind of like that Kim Kardashian selfie era, and
mhm.
TikTok is way more authentic and real, and people are way more self-deprecating and humorous. And it's so nice to see that kind of come out versus this staged version of who you want everyone to perceive you to be that has
Mhm,
been
mhm.
social media for so long.
Oh, completely. It's funny. I was listening to a podcast recently, and one of the founders of TikTok was actually talking about it. And he said one thing that was just so smart, like so basic. He goes, "Why does TikTok work?" is what they asked, and his answer was, because human nature goes against education. People want to be entertained, and it's just like, boom. You couldn't have come up with a better answer for why this is such an addictive medium.
Wow.
Yeah, he compressed it. I mean, I'm assuming English is a second language for him too. I assume. I didn't know that much about the fellow, but it's like, you get it, man. People don't want to be educated; they want to be entertained. And
Mm.
so instead of thinking, oh, how can I improve it for the way that mom wants, go the opposite direction. Go understand the user. So, well, you know what? We're talking about the future, and I know you're on the path, in an amazing way, just from the other mediums I'm witnessing. But why don't we go a little bit into the past, a little bit back? Marcus, I mean, he's a legend in Vancouver.
Yes.
How did the two of you meet?
A drunk over a bottle of wine.
As most
great. Every great really found a relationship starts.
it makes so much sense, especially around the dating. Well, I mean, what was it a job request, or was it like how did that come from?
No, we just happened to meet through mutual friends or a mutual connection, and I honestly had too much to drink that night, and I don't remember our conversation. But I got a call the next day asking if I wanted a job. And at this point in time, Plenty of Fish, I had no idea what Plenty of Fish was. It wasn't really that well known. And I was kind of hesitant. It was 2008. We'd just gone through kind of the financial crisis, and there's a lot of hesitation around switching jobs because you didn't know, like, what's this crazy startup that has no employees, doesn't have an office really yet, and I've never heard of it. For whatever reason, I decided to take the leap and join Plenty of Fish, and had such a phenomenal experience. And getting to work closely with Marcus for 7 years, sitting next to him, learning from him, really, he's a big part of what set me up to be successful.
I love that. And I'm sure you're going to set up the next person, that you take drunk under your wing to be successful too. I know that's going to happen as well. But
I'm a little older now, so I don't think I do my job interviews quite the same way we used to.
I dig that. Well, I think Marcus owns the wineries and everything now. I've been reading about, so maybe he can hand that on to you and then hands on there. But anyhow, I digress. So before that, were you ever working in the tech industry?
No, that really was my first foray into it. I had worked for an advertising agency. I'd worked for an oil company. I was working at a brokerage firm when I actually met Marcus. So I definitely didn't have the technical chops or any of that. And that's why I really say Marcus is he gave me the leeway and the opportunity to learn. And he always said, like, I said yes to everything. It didn't matter what he threw at me. I would say yes to it and I'd figure it out. And so he knew that he could just trust me to get things done. And I would learn it, and I would work my way around it, or I'd ask the right questions or find the people to get the answers. And it was in that moment of time, 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, you were able to do that with tech. It wasn't the same as now, where there's a lot of people with experience and knowledge, and you kind of need that to get your foot in the door. So I really relished that opportunity I was given.
Well, for those who are trying to change careers, and tech is an awesome opportunity, what was the first thing that you went through? Like when you said, okay, I'm going from brokerage or energy or whatever, and now I'm in tech. What was the thing that you said, this I need to know? What's the first thing that you had to learn? Was it like how servers work, or was it just, social media, or was there something that you said, I need to know this first?
Not in the moment, but I think the thing that gave me the biggest amount of power or opportunity was learning SQL and being able to dig into the database myself and understand what was happening. And that provided me the tools to ask the right questions, to be able to pull the data myself and really understand how things were being done. And to this very day, I still do it. I go into the database, I write my own queries, and that, I would say, is the superpower that allowed me to excel more than I probably would have otherwise. And it's interesting when you can kind of look under the hood and really understand what's going on and how things are being done, that you can just frame your questions differently. You have a different understanding of how the product's working. So that's hands down my biggest piece of advice to give to someone, is understand the underlying infrastructure and actually see the data in a database.
I think that is honestly some of the best advice. I mean, I'm always surprised and well, not surprised. I should say I always tell people, SQL, for example, or even Python. I mean, they're not that hard to learn, but once you learn it, you understand the basic kind of building blocks. And so you can be a little bit more understanding. But also, what I love the fact that you took SQL or learned SQL is you don't have to rely on other people to get the data that you're most interested in, right? So you can dig deeper, as long as you're not doing any, you don't want to write to the database, but as long as you're reading from the database. I don't
have write access. Even to this day, I don't have write access. I wouldn't want it.
I dig that. Well, I think that's, because everything in dating, I assume, is analytics driven. Would that be fair to say?
Parts of it, yes.
Yeah.
But I do think that part of learning and understanding the database is you also understand what's available to you. If you've never actually looked at it and understand, okay, what fields are there, you don't know what opportunities you have.
Well, here's a question actually about dating applications then, because I know when we're looking at like, hey, it's the Uber of this or something like that, I always tell people, well, don't focus on, it's a supply and demand problem. Like it's always supply and demand, but focus on one over the other because one drives the other. That's my thoughts, but I want to hear it. Is there a similar thought in the dating that you want to think of? Okay, we want to focus on supply first because if you have enough people, demand will come out of that, or do you just try to build the infrastructure? Is there ever a way of looking at a dating app like that?
I think, I mean, it really is getting people on the app that are interested in meeting someone.
Mhm.
And on this first, in the beginning stages, when you've got your first 10 people or 100 people, absolutely it's difficult because what's the chances that they're going to find out of 1 out of 100 happens to be the person that they're interested in? And when you take gender preferences into consideration, those numbers drop even more.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily supply demand. I think it's there's location plays a role. Um, there's natural churn in dating. We had our first success couple 6 weeks in. That was something that I
Love
was
it.
absolutely shocked by. But
Mhm.
if you're doing a good job, people should be leaving your app and ending up
Mm.
in happy relationships. So like the supply just constantly needs to be coming in order for you to have a successful app.
That's an amazing thought. It's like the opposite of a drug dealer in concept. Like you're basically saying, "Hey, I'm going to give you the tools that you need to set you free." You know,
Absolutely.
it's hey, you want love? Let's find love. And I hope our tool is good enough that you don't need us again. You
That's
know?
it because they then become your biggest champions. If they say, I met my partner on Snack, they tell their friends. They have weddings. They go out there and they say, oh, I'm going on a snack date. And
Mhm.
it's one of those things that you can't get better marketing than that. So really, if you
Mm.
focus on how do we get people off the app, going on dates, meeting their person, that is where your word of mouth comes from.
Oh, for sure. And the name snack. I mean, it's small, biteable, you know, a little bit kissy. I love it. How did you come up with that?
It actually, I went to a group of Gen Zs that I was using or that was helping me kind of come up with ideas for the app. And I said, okay, what would you call a dating app targeting Gen Z? And they immediately came back with the name Snack. And they actually spelled
Mm.
it SNACC. And I had no idea what it meant. I had to Google it. And to this day, when I talk to people, half the people know what snack means and half the people don't. And it's a
Oh,
very much generational thing.
put me on the app that doesn't then. Okay, I'm happy to admit it. Is it something repeatable on
Yeah.
air
Oh,
here?
no, it's like, oh, he's a snack or she's a snack. Like they're good looking.
Ah, okay. So
And that's yeah,
that
it's
makes
just a
sense. That
term
makes
that, and then once
sense.
you get it, you're like, oh, okay, now I know why it's
Oh,
called snack.
I'm surprised I haven't heard that. And from, in the air as I walk around all the time that he's a snack
Yeah.
for some reason. Yeah, no, instead I just hear my son yell that let's go or whatever it is the kids are yelling these days too.
It's probably a good thing
Um,
you're not hearing it from your kids yet.
mm. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
Now that you're aware of it, you might. I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what? If I could, if I'm aware of that one word, I'm fine. It's the other stuff I'm scary about. So they're scared of. So, well, so have you ever done? So you've startups. You've done, or this is your first true startup that you've founded yourself, or have you done it before as well?
I did one within the Plenty of Fish kind of ecosystem with Marcus
Okay, like
that
entrepreneurial
lasted
sort of
for,
way.
yeah, that lasted for about 1 or 2 years. And then
Mm-hmm.
I rolled back up into the fold under Plenty of Fish. So I've built something, torn it down again. But this is my first time fundraising and first time
Wow.
really kind of starting from scratch out on my own.
Fantastic. And I know you've been doing really well in the fundraising, because
Yes.
we discussed, and that's, I mean, that's always one of the, for a lot of young founders or starting up, new founders, that's one of those things that they don't really get that game. Like it's, I want $1 million. Well, why? Because I want $1 million in my pocket. It's not your money, like that sort of a thing. What approach did you take to the first step of getting investment? What was the first step you did besides, I mean, you had the idea, you had the business plan. What's the first thing that you did in order to get investment?
The first thing I did was got advice on how to fundraise.
Mhm.
Hands down, I went and talked to a few people, said, okay, how do you even run a process? How do you do this? What does it look like in San
Mhm.
Francisco? I'd never done it before. So it was seeking that advice that I think was the game changer for me. And it's interesting. I spent more time. Most people focus on the pitch and they say, okay, if I get my deck right and I practice my pitch, I'll be able to raise capital. And the feedback I got was actually focusing on the process.
Mm.
And how do you prepare yourself? How do you find who are the right people you need to be talking to? Who are the right funds? Who are the right partners at those funds? Who are the right associates? And who can make those connections for you?
Mhm.
And
They
so
got to work for it too.
I spent about a month putting that all together and saying, okay, who out of all my mutual connections on LinkedIn is the one I know the best? reaching out to them, asking how well they knew that person, if they'd feel comfortable making the introduction, and lining it all up so that I was able to hit the ground running all at the same time and doing all my pitches. And it actually ended up being about a 3-week process. So
Which
from
is
the time
super
I
short.
started, from the time I started pitching to getting my first term sheet was 3 weeks.
That's
And
amazing.
I really, really fundamentally believe that it was the process that resulted in that, as well as the idea and my background. And there's a lot of compounding factors there.
Oh, yeah.
But the process was a big piece of it. And it was all done during COVID. So it was all done over Zoom, which I actually think in some ways was a bit of a benefit. You're not racing in the valley between areas and offices. You're not having to juggle getting an Uber and responding to your emails. You get to kind of, I always joke, I'm like, I brought people into my own den. I didn't have to walk into a VC's office and feel intimidated or nervous. As I sat on my couch in my living room and I got to kind of control a bit of the narrative. And then the other thing I did is I actually never went through my pitch deck. I sent it off in advance. The way I viewed it was you only have so much real estate and screen space that you want to have that one-on-one conversation with someone. You don't want them staring at the deck and not building a rapport or relationship with you. So you can talk through the deck and you should know it well enough that you can just speak to it, but that shouldn't be the thing that you're having your investors look at.
Well,
So I had and the last piece of advice I'd give is I viewed it as, when else are you going to get these amazingly smart people with such different backgrounds thinking about your product and your problem and you for 30 minutes or an hour? And how, if you approach it like that, it's okay. So what can I take away from it? Or what help can you give me? Or what advice would you give me? So that it's not just about pitching and getting money. It's how do I take the input of all these people so that even if it is a no, you got something valuable out of it. And I think that approach was extremely valuable for the amount of introductions I got, the people I spoke to that I never thought I would ever talk to. And it wasn't just for investments, it was for advice, product experience, you name it. It came out of those pitches.
Fantastic. And would it be fair to say that you were oversubscribed? There were people that you said no to, because I mean, definitely, I honestly can't. I put my money down, which says a lot. And you know what? It comes down to, our conversation I had with Maria from Pender Ventures. You invest in an idea, but you really invest in the people. And it's the people that can get it done, because, even if the idea is kind of half cooked, but they know there's something there, they can sell it. Like, you can sell it. And if you have the right channels and the right people behind you, or people that are going to get behind you, and I think that's a rare wave that you can bring, and it's a superpower. And I don't want the young Canadian or young entrepreneurial listeners here to think I can do it in 3 weeks, because that's rare. That is a triple slam dunk.
You have to realize that I'm a founder who's done it before. I'm going back into the space that I know so intimately well, and I have a hypothesis and riding a wave of video first that everyone else is believing in right now as well. So it is that triple threat. And so no, fundraising isn't that easy. And it does take a lot of work, but definitely think about the process you're running and get some advice on that before just running out there and start pitching VCs, because there is a bit of a formula to it.
Now, speaking of formulas, I believe you're part of the CDL, right? The Creative Destructive Labs. How was, like, that's a really common experience with a lot of the people I'm talking to, and it says a lot about the excellence of the projects going through. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with the CDL?
I have loved Creative Destruction Labs. I think it is, the structure that they put into the program is that every 8 weeks you have a you start your first meeting, and then you get to meet all the ventures. And then you put your hand up to provide mentorship hours towards those ventures. So you get to pick the couple of ventures that you're excited about and that you want to help the founders out on. And you set objectives. And over the next 8 weeks, you're meant to help them hit those objectives. And then you have another meeting, and you can decide to either stick with those ones, pick new people, not mentor anyone. But again, you're set another set of objectives. So it's very clear as a mentor what you're supposed to be helping these companies do. And I think that's the brilliance behind CDL is, I know when I can help certain ventures in certain areas, and I know when I can't in other areas. So say someone's going to now, originally in my first year there, I had no idea about fundraising. So I never would have put my hand up to help a venture when that was one of their objectives. But now that I have this experience, I'll absolutely put my hand up and say, yep, you know what? I will help you this session because I've just been through this. I know what I can, I know how I can help you. But the people sitting around the table are phenomenal. And I think that's where a lot of the value comes from, is there's such a breadth of experience too. So you get to see really cool and interesting companies that have such different backgrounds, that like you're looking at like someone doing a vegan egg protein. We're like, I never would have seen that. Or contact lenses that can recharge, like the battery can recharge with your tears. Like there's such amazing ideas and products that are coming out of this that I never would have gotten exposure to.
And it's such a uniquely Canadian idea, I think, where it comes, well, because VC wasn't really, our strong point, I would say, but really the relationships between government, between university, between, the privates, and that's where I see, the successes, and in the keen, great minds of people like yourself who want to make a difference, who want to create impact, maybe not just for, your own pocketbook, but also because you think, hey, this is a great journey. There's a great adventure that's, to just be part of that. No, would you ever?
That's why I say that people sitting around the table are phenomenal, because they're all extremely smart, driven, had successes, but they all want to give their time back and help this next generation of startups be successful.
Completely. And it's nice, if you are an angel investor or anything too, it's also a nice funnel of seeing what's going through and what other people are thinking about too, which is fantastic. Would you have ever considered, or is Snack kind of already kind of moving along faster for having Snack part of the CDL?
I didn't consider it. And I think part of it is because I feel like it would be a bit of a conflict of interest, that I know all the mentors so well now that, and I think we're also moving a little bit faster than what CDLs, and I've been through it before. So had I been a first-time founder, I absolutely would have gone through CDL. And had I not already had those relationships with the mentors, I would have gone through CDL, but it's kind of hard to be a mentor and put your hand up and say, help me too. It's a bit different.
I dig it.
I feel like I could reach out to most of the mentors anyways and ask for help regardless. So completely.
And I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. But the other thing I love about the model is that it's a lot crueler than people think. Like it really is, sink or swim.
You can get voted off the island. Absolutely.
Very quickly. And I've loved over the years hearing people's stories of how they got, or, just like, oh, I'm gone. Like I thought I was going forever. Like, okay. And still be, really successful companies, but absolutely. it just sets you up nicely. Okay. Well, you know what? The theme of Afternoon Tea is all about trying to, learn from great Canadian entrepreneurs like yourself in order to prep that next generation of founders. So please, do you have any one piece of advice that you would give to a startup founder? Just one piece of gold that you've learned that you can share with our listeners.
For me, it's always been about relationships and forming really strong bonds with people, and not taking any of those relationships for granted and offering something in return. Like I always try to give back, and I always try to help other companies and other startups, even while doing Snack. And even while I don't necessarily think I have the time, I find it, because to me, those relationships and helping other people is really important. And what I'm finding is that having genuinely done that for the last 12, 15 years, it's starting to come back and pay back in like a number of different ways that I never would have expected. So I think just having a genuineness to what you're trying to do, and also asking for help when you need it. I think too many people think that they can do it alone. And that's what I said. The first thing I did when I was fundraising was ask for help from someone who knew how to fundraise. That's awesome. I kind of got bounced around and introduced to a bunch of people. And all that advice is what landed me a really great fundraising process. So it's being open to building relationships, asking for advice, and just being really genuine about what you're doing and why.
Well, and that's awesome, because you know what? At the end of the day, if we're all in the water and our boats all float together, we're all doing better.
Exactly. Startups are hard. They're hard.
They're very
hard.
They're cruel.
Being a founder is hard. But the other thing that I would say is you only go through this stage once. Like I remember at Plenty of Fish, some of my favorite moments when we were such a small company that everyone knew each other so well. We were all friends. We all got along. We hung out after work. And we're now at Snack, we're at 15 people. And I'm like, we're not going to go down. So cherish these moments, because we're going to continue to increase in size. We're going to continue to have other challenges and other opportunities, but the wins we get today, we won't get that again. And the people we work with today, you don't get that again. So just take those moments and take it in and be like, this is such an amazing experience.
You know, what you touched on reminds me of the early days, the excitement of TTT. And I remember one fellow from Seattle who was giving us a little mentorship, and he said, this is the most exciting time because now you get to define culture. Now, do you find that you're defining culture, or the culture is already kind of defining itself with the group of people that you have?
I mean, I will say we actually had our first leadership team get together in person yesterday,
nice.
Which was amazing to be able to see each other in 3D versus 2D.
Yeah.
And we're having our first all team get together in a couple of weeks. So I think part of it is having a team during COVID, that there are some cultural things that, yes, we've set them, but once we start being able to see each other in person and having an office, I think that'll really define and change a little bit too. But I have very much have a work hard, play hard attitude. And I make sure that the team knows that, like, we don't have set vacation. It's take the time you need, especially during COVID, like do what you need to do for you. But also, if you say you're going to deliver something by a certain time and date, then I would like to see it delivered. And you can come to me and tell me why you aren't going to hit that deadline. And that's fine too. But there are certain things, and other people rely on you to get things done when you say you're going to get them done. So I want you to be held accountable for that, but at the same time, have that flexibility and openness around take the time you need.
I love that. Anyone listening, there is leadership right there. Like, that's really what you need to do. You need to understand the project needs to move forward, but you also have to understand the people behind the project. You know, they have lives as well. And you're just complimenting, you know, their journey, and you're doing it together. But I really like that. So it's one question I always like to ask. And I had a poll yesterday to kind of reflect on it. I put on LinkedIn. I was shocked how many people answered it, actually. Was, you know, name a Canadian entrepreneur that you would love, like an entrepreneurial legend. You know, maybe that's Marcus, maybe that's whoever, but that you would love to have on your team. Can you? Yeah, it's a tough one. Who would that be? Entrepreneurial legend be? Do you think?
Well, there's a couple that come to mind right now, mainly because I saw your poll and I saw Ryan Reynolds on it.
Of course.
And the reason I say that, because he's actually on the Match.com board. And he's been helping, and he's been helping them with their ads recently, and they're doing phenomenal. Their
devil
ads
ones.
And then the most recent one was about like how all the wedding singers are banding together saying, please get back in love. Like, please find someone, because we haven't had work for the last year and a half. And so I think like he's got a really, really smart marketing chops. And so I would love to pick his brain and say, okay, what would you do for snacks? I'm sure there'd be a plethora of ideas, but I think he probably has a non-compete, so that won't work. Who else? I'd say he'd be my number one at the moment, just because of how relevant it is.
Well, you know what's funny? When I came up with that list, I wanted to make it inclusive and I wanted to make it real. And there's so many. I mean, and I say that in a way that, my gosh, there's so many great Canadian entrepreneurial legends. But the beautiful thing is it only allowed me to put 4 in LinkedIn. And that was a savior, because I actually had people that probably didn't like, I mean, of course, you know, Musk and The Rock. He's Canadian too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
His dad's from Nova Scotia. So, and he played in the CFL. Yeah, on a Canadian thing. So who wouldn't want to have those people in your poll too? But if I had The Rock and Musk in it, it seems like it's People Magazine poll instead of a real poll that I'm trying to do, right? But I mean, but at the end of the day, I would die to have any of those in my back pocket of, you know, people helping us out as a company. So anyhow, you know what, Ryan Reynolds it is. And I know that he just sold his Maximum Effort company, I believe today, which is his marketing firm. So that guy's just rolling into good things. And the thing that I love about him as well, and this is such a Vancouver story of, you know, how his roots are still tied into it, is no matter how much money he makes, and the guy's going to be the golden boy of money, he sure seems to give back, and he sure seems to know. Like, if you follow his social media, he's talking about the awful things that are happening around the Indigenous schools, and he's making sure that people are aware of those. And his roots are deep and strong. And so he might be down in the valley, but he's going to do such great things, both in terms of business and in terms of social benefits. That honestly, I just get excited to and thankful that we won the lottery, that he was born here.
I know. That's a great way of looking at it. I just wish he was on Snacks board and not Matches.
Well, you know what? Maybe through an acquisition later, but we'll leave that one alone.
I was joking. I'm like, I should go get Hugh Jackman.
Oh, if you do that, I hope that idea came right here, right now, because that would be genius.
I've thought about it before.
Okay. Oh, I could try. I could try. Let me go phone up Hugh. I'll call him for you and tell
Please do,
him.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, you want to start this rivalry again with Ryan?
Yeah. Oh, hey, Kim, thanks so much for joining us today. This was what fun. What a great way to send out season 2 of who've been honestly, we've had some amazing guests, and honestly, this is like the cherry on top of the sundae sort of fun time I had. So thank you for you've got a very busy schedule. Thanks for just spending a little time with us here today.
Of course, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Excited to close out the series.